Welcome to this live tribe call. We're in August of 2022. And if you haven't been on one of these calls before, we started these calls at the beginning of the pandemic when guys weren't able to meet, and yet in person, of course, and yet we knew that guys were hurting and guys wanted help and connection and brotherhood. And so Steve Horseman and myself and all the coaches got together and we said, hell yeah, we're going to start having these live tribe calls. That was back when our local meeting couldn't happen either because COVID shut that down. So we've been doing this for 2.5 years at this point, and I'm proud to be here for you. I've got nothing to sell to you today. I'll give you some resources if you like. I do have some posts from other men on this topic, and the topic of our live tribe call today is in-house separation a good idea? Is in-house separation a good idea? And we're going to talk about blind spots and perspective and what is it that you hope to achieve if you're in an in-house separation position? What do you believe that she wants from this? What do you believe? Not that you can guess what she's thinking or feeling necessarily, but what do you want from this, from your own self? And what can you control? What can you control and what can you not control? And so the men I work with, of course, and the men in this group, often we are the ones that want the marriage, right? Otherwise you'd be out dating 3 women at the same time or something, or, spinning plates as they say. So most men here want the marriage. Most men here want to work it out. They want to understand what she's going through. They are men of integrity. They are men of want to be grounded, men that were serious when they took their vows, right? And so when she says things like, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, or I need space, or I think we should separate for a time, it's incredibly painful, of course. The whole world feels shook. Our world feels shook, feels shaken. So when we come here, this is about you. Yes, I do talk with men about how to heal wounds from the past, how to have more desire and connection in your relationship. And it starts with you. I think every man here realizes that it starts with you. Your cup has to be full with joy and love and direction for you to offer healthy, grounded, masculine modeling for anyone else in your life, your woman, your children. And this affects, of course, your work. And so I'm here for you. And I love when you guys, like I said, have your cameras on. Martin, good to see you. Dave, Jim, John, Michael, Jeff. There's a bunch of guys here too that are just listening. And C, Ben, Carl, Ron, Harry came on in. Henrik's here. Tim's here. Chris is here. So I want to bounce over to you first. I certainly have some different information prepared, some posts from other men that I've pulled, and some things I'll get into when we have time. But I want to start with you first, okay? Because this is what this is about. So especially guys that have your cameras on, it means basically like you're ready and maybe you want to put something on the table with us here. Are you? Hey there, C. Good to see you. So are you in an in-house separation? Are you considering a separation? What do you hope to learn today? What do you hope to put on the table today? So John, Michael, Jeff, Dave, Jim, Martin, one of you guys, unmute yourself and come on in, please.
Jeff here.
For me,
Somebody's got to go first.
Yeah, Jeff, go for it. Looks like you're the only one unmuted. And then Martin, and looks like John. So yeah, Jeff, go for it first.
All right. Actually, just listening to you, the first thing that came to me was this feeling of not quite confusion, but usually when you enter into a situation, you usually have some idea of why you're doing it. And I guess I'm just looking for some guidance here. I'm not at a point where this is going to happen, but it could. And I'm just thinking, why do people agree to an in-house? Is it both people agree to it usually, or one asks the other for it and they reluctantly agree? And if they do agree, what's the basis for it? How do you prepare for it? How do you even know where to go from that point? That's my question.
Yeah, great question. So I like to work with specifics and with your situation. So you kind of asked the general question, and I understand, but take me into your spot, or what's the concern or fear on your particular part, Jeff?
Well, we've had moments where we haven't talked, where we've been at a roadblock, so to speak, and we haven't been able to communicate with each other. And I guess that has a lot to do with being able to be vulnerable and reveal ourselves to the other person. So I've had in my own mind thoughts of sometimes, do I still want to be with this person? You know, just expanding the whole picture of where is this going? What could it possibly turn out to be like? And I thought sometimes I don't want to move out. I want to stay here. If we get to a point where we're really not talking with each other, or we're just talking about the normal things, who's going to do the dishes, who's taking the garbage out, crap like that, how would I live with this person in an in-house separation? How would I live with her and try to proceed forward? From what basis would I work from? We have to both agree, obviously, that we want to have an in-house separation. We have to agree that there may be a reason why we want to stay together. But it just seems to me like if I'm going to do an in-house separation, it's almost like saying, yeah, okay, well, this is only temporary. Eventually, we're going to leave. But so to me, it's like, how do you prepare for it? How do you come to an agreement? What's the purpose of this? Is this temporary? Is it permanent? Where are we going? And sometimes I feel like that's where it's happened over and over again, where we've approached that situation. And it's like the old approach and avoidance thing. You approach it, but you don't actually deal with it. So if you agree to it, how do you formulate a plan? How do you agree to whatever the process is going to be? How do you even talk about it?
Yeah, I hear you, Jeff. That's a good question. Have you heard of the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover? It's the masculine archetypes based off of Carl Jung's work. Have you heard of that book just at all?
Haven't heard of the book. I love Carl Jung, what I know of him. So that would be, yeah, it'd be something I'd be
So
interested.
yeah, so there's a book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. If you haven't read it, I wouldn't suggest it's one of your first half dozen books. This should be a book after maybe if you're in this work, you've read a lot of books. And so King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, maybe book 10, maybe book 8, something like that. So here's my point. The king part of you is overarchingly making decisions for your entire life and those within your life, within your purview. And the lover is, as you might imagine, what's the emotional connection like? How am I leading that aspect of my life, right? The warrior is the part of you that takes action. And the magician is sort of the intellectual side of you, the one that is trying to figure everything out or strategize. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so when you ask that question, I'll just use this as a frame of, you're asking me from the, how do I figure this out? What exactly is the plan? And there's not, and this is not a slight, this isn't a criticism, Jeff, it's just something I'm seeing, is that there's not much lover or king within your question. King being, you said, well, what's the goal here? But king of, what do you want? What do you want to lead toward is something I didn't hear. And the other piece was the lover part of you. So if I turn to my woman and I say, hey, let's agree on a separation, and I just logically speak about, hey, let's man to man talk about goals. Because if you go to your woman and you say, let's agree and let's talk about goals, you're treating her like a man, and you're not thinking about the lover energy at all between the two of you. Yeah. So take me into that a bit. In other words, what do you want with her? What do you feel isn't there? It's not that the separation should necessarily fix something. So why would you want separation? Take me into that.
Oh, this is difficult. Um, Sometimes I feel like I need space from whatever it is that we've built. Space to just take a look at it without her opinion, without her understanding or interpretation, or however she approaches it in many different ways. Sometimes I just feel like I just need to get away from everything and stop and look and see, where am I? Who am I? What do I want?
Yeah. So you're basically saying this, it's like an existential question for you. Who am I? Where am I?
Yeah.
Or are you saying she doesn't like it when you go golfing and you want to just get out, get out and get away?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have any hobbies because at this point in my life, I drive a semi and I'm on the road, and it takes up a great deal of my time. So the only two things that are happening in my life is work or being here at home. There's no time for anything else, except maybe going to the beach once in a while, because I live in California, Southern California. So once in a while we do that. Um, so I really, even when I'm driving, I don't really have time to stop and think about it because I'm so preoccupied with the work and where I'm going and the traffic and all of that. It's not, to me, sitting down and having time to myself really is about finding a peaceful place to meditate and just talk with myself.
Okay. So Jeff, let me ask, I'll jump in real fast. So two things. This is like an existential question for yourself. This doesn't, and unless I'm wrong, it doesn't sound like something to do with your relationship, but what you're asking is just literally to have time for yourself. So dumb question. Okay. Dumb question, Jeff. Why don't you get up 30 minutes earlier every day and go outside, or go outside, be by yourself, go find a place to sit, go to the beach, get up 2 hours earlier one day a week and go to the beach. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I could do that. I could do that. I hesitate to do it. There's a lot of anxiety about being independent from my wife, where that's going to go, whether that's a message that she's going to receive. I don't want to be with you anymore. I sometimes feel like she's on the edge of making that decision for herself. And sometimes I feel like taking time off to myself away from her would contribute to her believing that I don't want to be with her.
So let me pause right there. So we create these stories in our mind. And where did you get that idea, Jeff?
My first marriage ended after 22 years because towards the end of, I didn't think it was going to be the end. I was so discombobulated about my purpose in life and where I was going and work situations and so on that I didn't communicate with my first wife for weeks and weeks at a time, almost months. I just was so withdrawn from everything, including her, that she became convinced that I no longer loved her, and she ended up having an affair.
Sure. So Jeff, certainly avoiding and not having communication with our woman is not what I'm suggesting.
Hmm.
Yeah. But so that makes a lot of sense of why you have fear around this. So pendulum on one side is we smother our woman and we want to be with her every moment and we'd have no life for ourselves. And pendulum on the other side is we avoid, have no communication, stick her head in the sand, basically for large chunks of time, pretend she doesn't exist. And so she feels betrayed and disconnected. Yeah. So there's a middle ground, and I'll put this on the table and then we'll step forward, Jeff, and I'm happy to circle back around. There's a middle ground of, hey, baby, I need some alone time. I'm going to go to the beach on Friday morning by myself. Or, hey, I'm going to go down into my man cave this evening. I'll see you at dinner time. I'll see you at 7:00. And you go to the beach or you go to your man cave and you meditate or you journal or you write or you work out or you go sit in nature and you contemplate these existential questions that all of us have. All of us have. And you don't have to solve it within that time, but do you see that time as a healing, as for you? Right, Jeff, there's you, there's her, and there's the relationship. And if the point of this story that we create is, if you spend no time on you, then she has nothing to love.
Mm-hmm.
There is no you
Mm-hmm.
if you don't build your own self in segments of your own time. And she wants you to be confident within yourself. She wants you to ask and be on a journey of these questions, this hero's journey in this chapter of life that you're in, and be proud of that journey that you're on for your own self. but not to take your crisis to her.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That last part was really, what you said, take my crisis to her. The evidence is boundless we've been together about 22 years as well. She's said many, many times, I'm not here to solve your problems.
Yeah. Dude, I'm with you, Jeff, right? That's why we're here. Is so many of these things are counterintuitive. We're sort of taught this politically correct, share your emotions with her and be open with her. And we mistakenly understand that. We're not guided in that. That's why you're here. That's why we're here learning this work. I had to learn this work too. We mistakenly take our unabashed anxieties to her. And that's not what she wants. We don't want to take our open wounds to her. I frame it as an open wound versus a scar. So an open wound is, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I have anxiety about my day to day. What should I do about this, honey? Or, and just dumping it on her versus, hey, I'm going to take an hour for myself. Not that you magically solve it in an hour, but you go post in the forum, you reach out to a brother, you journal, right? You go work out, you get some kind of perspective for yourself, and you come back and she might say, hey, what were you doing? Or what's wrong? You say, I was diving into my own thoughts about myself. Something like this. I was diving into my journey of my own self.
Yeah.
And you share a scar, as in you've learned about yourself, you've processed it your own self and made sense of it, or with brothers. And then you're not taking the question to her within your energy. So if I'm like uncertain, I don't know what's going on, and I take that to my woman, she's going to feel unsafe, and that's not lover energy, and she's going to want to distance herself. But every one of us knows, I think, at least up here, and the work is to get it down here into your body, into your soul, into your balls, that it's okay not to have everything figured out, but you want to be on a journey for yourself. Like you want to be in a particular direction for your own self. And that's our job as men, to figure out ourselves and with other men. Yeah. Great question, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Martin, come on in. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, please. Good. Yeah.
How's it going?
Good, man. Good to see you. Happy Saturday.
Thank you. Yeah, same to you guys. Yeah, I'm kind of in a weird situation just because I don't think we've really had the conversation about separating as a reality. We've just had about 2 weeks ago. She said she wanted a divorce about 4 weeks ago in a moment of anger. I was on a business trip and came back about 2 weeks ago, and we sat and things seemed fine the first day. A couple of days later, we got into an argument about something, and we finally just sat down, and she said that she feels like that phrase, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Anytime I tried to push her for what that meant, what do you want to do? She would get very stressed and tense. I don't know if I want a divorce. I don't know. So that's when I started Googling what to do and found this course and learned that I shouldn't be asking really anything right now. It's not my place, or it shouldn't be my stance, because it's just putting pressure on her when she's in a situation where I don't think she knows what she wants. But like I posted on the Facebook group last night, I'm also a little worried we've kind of fallen into this lull. So we had about 2 weeks where I backed off. I started focusing on myself. And we just honestly had a really enjoyable 2 weeks together where there was no fighting. We still continued every morning. We usually have coffee in the morning. We'd still go sit down on the dock, have coffee. We had planned, I had this business trip coming up. I knew I was going to be away for 2 weeks. So we just kind of said, we'll have our space for 2 weeks while I'm on this trip. When we come back, maybe we'll go to marriage counseling. And after I spoke with Steve, I really felt like marriage counseling, I'm not ready for it yet. And I don't think she's in a place where she would say, yeah, let's go to marriage counseling because I actively want to work on my marriage. She hasn't said that. All she said is, I don't love you that way anymore. But yet nothing's really changed. The only thing that's tangibly changed is that we sleep in the same bed, but we don't make love. We don't kiss. We don't hold hands. There's no affection, but everything else is exactly the same. She calls me every morning. She texts me throughout the day. She keeps me updated. She's not wearing a wedding ring. Like, she does still little things that, you know, she's still struggling with this. If you didn't, from the outside, I think people would not know that something was going on, because she's still texting. We're still talking. Before bed, she'll text, "I love you." Before we get off the phone, I say, "I love you." She says, "I love you too." But yet then she is not wearing her ring. And then she said something like, "Yeah, I need to talk to so-and-so and fill them in on what's going on." So she's still talking to people about it. So it's just, I don't know, it puts me in a hard place where we have this living situation. Like, I'm going to be going home in about 6 days, and I'm not quite sure what to expect. I'm afraid it's just going to be another 2 weeks of not talking about it and not having any direction on where we're moving. And I don't know, it can cause anxiety on my end of like, should I be bringing it up? Should I go to her and say, "Hey, you know, what are we doing here?" You know, if you don't love me, like, common sense would say, if you don't love me, I've been through a divorce before. The minute I felt that for my ex-wife, when I knew I didn't have any feelings for her, I loved her as a person, but I didn't have any feelings. I couldn't even sleep in the same bedroom with her. I just felt like it was gross. And I literally got an apartment that day and moved out. So I don't understand her situation where she's like, "Yeah, you know, I don't feel like I love you anymore, but I'm fine sleeping in the same bed." It's weird to me. Like, I can't relate on my level to how that makes sense for her. I would think if I were her, I get this feeling that the strongest feeling that came through when she finally let me in and told me what's going on. I mean, I've been with her since she was 19 years old. She's never had her own life. She's never had her own ability. One of the comments she said was, "You know, if I want to stay out to 3 a.m, I want to stay out to 3 a.m. I don't want to think about I've got a husband. I don't want to think about having to communicate with somebody. I just want to have that time in my life where I get to do what I want to do." And so I imagine she's still thinking about this life that she envisions without me, but she's not doing anything to move into that life. And I feel like that's the problem with in-house separation, is it's no longer obvious. It's kind of like we're in this limbo land. Like, years could go by with just everything being the same, except we don't have sex and we don't hold hands and we're not affectionate. You know, she says she doesn't have feelings for anyone else. She said it's not about any of that. It's just she wants independence. She wants to feel like she's made her own decisions. And I completely understand that. My first marriage, I got married when I was 19, and my wife now is 38. When I was 38, I had this, "Oh my God, I'm turning 40" moment. And I've always been in a relationship. I went from my parents' house to marriage. You know, I just never had an apartment to myself. I never got to just decide what I wanted to do without asking anybody. And I craved it. And my wife and I were dating at the time. I broke up with my wife for about a year and lived on my own, dated other people. And then we eventually reconciled. So I have a lot of empathy for what she's going through, although it's very painful to be on my side of it. I like being on the other side better. But yeah, I don't know like what to do. I feel like everyone's advice is probably going to be, you know, just give her that space that she needs, focus in on myself, don't put pressure on her. But I just don't know, like, how long does that go for?
Yeah, George, you're in the right space. You're in the right spot. Martin.
Yeah.
Sorry, Martin raised George. I'll call on you in a few minutes, Martin. So Martin, you're in the right spot. Yeah, Martin, let me ask you, how long have you been in this work? How long have you been doing coaching or reading books?
It's probably been about a week and a half.
A week and a half. Okay. A week and a half. Okay.
Why isn't it
Okay.
fixed now?
Yeah, right. So that's okay. Like, I could tell. That's fine. I wasn't sure exactly how long. That's fine. Why are you in? I'm gonna ask some dumb questions first. Okay, Martin?
Yeah.
Okay. So, why are you here? What do you, meaning in this work overall, what do you want for your own self?
I feel, obviously when she told me she wasn't in love with me and didn't want the marriage, I mean, that is complete polar opposite of how I was feeling. I went out to dinner last night with my wife's cousin, who reminded me I've not always been a great husband, that I've put her through a lot of shit, like when we broke up and I needed my space. And, you know, I haven't always, but honestly, for the last 2 years, I've grown more in love with my wife. I've been a much better husband than I've ever been. And it came from a place of like, you know, not like, oh, I should really grow up. It was like I just developed this genuine appreciation, respect for her during the pandemic when we got to hang out. That really changed my love and really deepened it. And so I was shocked. I was like, of all the times that you don't feel love for me, it's when I'm at my best, I feel like. So I don't want the marriage to end, but it really, once I started reading the material, just from the website, and then I've been on this divorce bomb module, I think I'm on the second one, seeing the things that I was doing that contributed probably a lot to how she's feeling. Just, I didn't have a sense of direction the last couple of years with the pandemic. I'm in healthcare. The business has just been hard. I've been really needy emotionally on her, and every little thing, you know, if I see her texting somebody too much, I'm like, why do you always have to be on your phone? You know, why can't you enjoy time with me? You know, we own a restaurant together, and, you know, she'll hang out with these young male bartenders, and I see her laughing and giggling, and we get in the fights. I'm like, you used to be that way with me. Why don't you feel that way? So this was like a couple of months ago. So I see this like, oh man, it probably just really bogged her down, and it made me realize I was dealing with something that I was trying to get from her. So at this point, I mean, I don't want the marriage to end, but now realizing all these things, I don't want to be that man anymore. So I'm really committed to just working on those things, because I'm sure they weren't attractive, and it makes perfect sense to me now in hindsight. But yeah, I'd say my priority is just to really like get my mojo back and to feel good. The hardest thing about this, I don't know if everyone feels the same way, it's the up and down. I'll talk to her with confidence and clarity and such a sense of purpose. Like, not that I don't care, but whether we stay together or not starts to become irrelevant. You know, that's not the point. The point for me, and my point with her right now, is to try to understand her, to try to be there for her, but to also take care of myself. And I feel so strong and at peace like that. But then I'll wake up this morning at 3:00 with my stomach in knots. Like, is she talking to someone else? You know, like, how do I know? And it's just like, it's not a consistency. It's not, you know, I just want to feel like I felt last night when I was like, she falls in love with somebody, good for her. I want that for her. I wish it was me, but I'll feel like in such a healthy place. And then today, you know, I'll be like, I probably won't even hear from her today. She probably is texting somebody else, but yet she called me first thing this morning. We talked for over an hour. And then I just don't like the up and the downs. I don't know how. I just want to be in that one gear where it's like, yeah, you know, like, I'm fine, I'm good. So that's what I'd like out of this, more consistency.
Yeah, I hear you, Martin. Well said. So there's something, I'm going to say some not politically correct things. Is that okay, Martin? You okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Well, let's start with, I've been doing this for a long time. I worked with hundreds of men, thousands of men in all my groups and calls. And I say clients on 5 continents, you know, this kind of thing. And it's the same. Yeah. It's the same all over the world. And it's the same with every man, in that when you want the relationship, when the part of you in that moment wants the relationship more than she does, it flips the polarity within the relationship. Have you heard of masculine, feminine polarity, Martin?
Yeah,
okay.
I have.
So by the way, welcome to the journey, bro. Like, okay, it's most men, it's at least 6 to 12 months. I just want to put that on the table. Okay. And so welcome. I hope this is just the first time that I see you, meaning for you,
yeah.
And to give your relationship and to give your attraction between the two of you a chance.
Yeah.
So this is not politically correct, and there's more behind this. And Martin, you and I could have a separate discussion about this if you want. But in the moments when you basically, in a needy way, want the relationship, like pine for the relationship or worry about the relationship more than the feminine does, more than the feminine person does, more than your woman does, it flips the polarity and it instinctually turns her off. And that's just a fact of masculine feminine dynamics. It's not, doesn't feel good. And we have love within us. We have a desire for connection, of course, within us. And that's excellent. I'm a romantic kind of guy, Martin, you know, like I'm right there with you. And your question right now is around, I want to feel more consistent. And what I see continually is when in an in-house separate, now I'm going to leave all financial questions aside for the moment. Like, let's just assume finances aren't an issue, which obviously they are, but let's just talk emotionally for a minute, which is whenever I see a man do an in-house separation, every time you have a conversation with her, every time basically you see her, it starts this emotional hangover clock. It restarts the emotional hangover clock. And usually that clock is about 3 days. And so if you take your own space, it might be something about the kids, for instance, or just like a responsibility check-in. But any kind of emotional connection, you feel this hangover, like I want this neediness come over you. And it's really difficult. It's incredibly difficult because the part of you wants to have this love story and you remember what it was like when and such, right? So this work is about being able to ground yourself in any situation and know what you want. And basically there's some hard truths here too, that a week and a half in, like you're really early for me to say out loud. Okay. But when I say out loud, a woman says, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, or I want space. Okay. What that means is the current version of the marriage is dead. That's what that means. And to say this another way is she's not feeling in love with you. And to her, that means the current version of the relationship is dead. That's the stark reality of when a woman says this. Now, that doesn't mean that you should go jump off a cliff or tell the bitch to hit the bricks or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But I want to give every man perspective here that when she says that, there is no going back to that same version of the relationship. There's only going forward. And that's why you're here, Martin, is you want to go forward. You want to go forward for yourself, and you want to go forward and potentially leading into version 2.0, another version of relationship. Okay. Now there's one more thing this is probably too much, Martin, so you and I should talk about this one-on-one, but there's another thing, which is, okay, this is so not politically correct, bro. I'm going here with you, okay? You taking notes? He's like, holy shit, what did I just ask Jeff? What did I get myself into? Okay. Something else to consider, which is how much emotional connection you're giving, like hour-long discussions, when there's no intimacy happening and basically she's not wanting the relationship.
Right.
So we have to be careful to not act like her girlfriend.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, again, I'm not saying tell her to go pound sand. I'm not saying be an asshole. I'm saying we need to be aware of what a high value man, a man that respects himself, a king in the world that sees his woman not wanting the same version of relationship. Okay. That what can he do for his own self? And I utilize this in my teaching. This is the Stoic Triangle, Martin, and for everybody that's on here. So the 3 sides of the Stoic Triangle. Virtue means this is what I was talking with Jeff about a few minutes ago. Who am I as a man? What do I want? What do I believe are my nuts, my values? What is my integrity? That's virtue. Control is what can I control and what can I not control? And responsibility, taking responsibility for those things, knowing what I want, knowing who I am, and taking responsibility for what I can control and not taking responsibility for what I cannot. So knowing what you want for your own self is vital to this work. That's why you're here. That's why this work is needed. No matter what happens in your life, you want to know you did everything that you could, the best that you could. You don't want to make these same mistakes again. You want to feel confident and amazing within your own self. And you want to see if you can start version 2.0 with your wife. That's what you want. So with all that said, let me circle back to when you said to your wife, why are you talking with those younger male bartenders? Okay. What was it in you that didn't feel confident?
It's tough at the moment that it happened. I think it was just sheer jealousy because I had realized that, she doesn't look at me that way anymore. And she doesn't, there was just like a looseness with her. And I get it, because I can be that way with complete strangers as well. There's no history, there's no nothing. But it kind of, her and I have been talking probably for the last 6 to 7 months around just the lack of intimacy in our relationship. Sex, for instance. She's always been the type of woman where she's never said no. If I want sex, twice a day, she would have sex twice a day. But it was void of her. It's I would tell her jokingly, like, she has checklists about everything on her phone. She just has, the notepads with the little dots that she can click when she's done with tasks. And I said, I'm starting to feel like a task, wake up, brush teeth, have sex with husband, go make breakfast for the kids. I said, I want to have a connection with you. I want to feel like you desire me as much as I desire you, because I had been starting to feel like, I get it. She's married. She's got kids. She's got work. She's got, all that stuff. And I said to her when I was upset, I said, you're sitting here telling me that you're just too tired, that it's not for me to take it personally. But then I see you be exactly how I want you to be, but it's not with me. It's somebody else. So it tells me that you have the ability to enjoy yourself. It tells me that you have the desire to want to enjoy yourself, but it's with other people. And I think that was really destructive in hindsight. But I think that's where she started thinking, like, maybe I'm not in love with this guy. I think I planted those seeds, because I'm like, what does that mean, Tiffany? Like, what does that mean that you'd rather stay up till 2 a.m. with people from work instead of coming home and spending time with me? And I just took it the wrong way. But I think what it said about me was exactly what the work we need to do here is that I'm a needy little bitch, and that's exhausting to a woman. I didn't have it, and I still don't have that waking up feeling good kind of attitude. I don't think I ever have. I think since I was 15 years old, I've been in a relationship, and I've always just fed off of women's affirmation to make me feel good about myself. So I think, to answer your question, it's, what was I feeling in that moment? It was just a complete lack of myself and the security of it, which would have allowed me, and I would have looked at her probably with pleasure, like, look at her having a good time, good for her, versus why can't she be that way with me? Why can't she look at me with those, beautiful eyes that she's all like, just having a good time? And, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's kind of where
I'm totally with you, Martin. I'm totally with you. So one more question, buddy, right? And I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one more.
Yeah.
You said I haven't really been, what were the words? I've been in a relationship and sought validation from women since I was 15. So what were you like when you first met Tiffany? You roll up with her, you're just dating for the first month or two. Who were you then?
Well, I was a married man, which is not the great beginning of the story. I was married when we met. And, it just kind of came out of nowhere, which is, I think, why it's very hard. Even she says that doesn't impact things. I think it does, because I think everyone kind of wants this romance story. And when you look back to the beginning of a relationship, it's always hard to feel like 100% great. Like, hey, we met at a store and he said something romantic and look we got married. It's like, he was married. We snuck around for about, 9 months till we realized, like, we can't shake this thing. And then I got separated and divorced, and we got together.
What does "we can't shake this thing" mean? That's so romantic. Oh my God, we can't shake this thing. I guess I better marry you. Is that what you mean?
No, just like, you know, when you have an affair, you know, you realize, oh, this is wrong. Like we just have to stop. But we just couldn't, you know, we'd keep just talking and everything else. Now we've been together for a long enough time. We went to counseling. We've kind of overcome some of those issues. It was more me. I had real issues. I didn't want to get married ever again after my first marriage. I just didn't see the point of it, but she really wanted to get married again. And my big hang up when I went to counseling was I just, you know, I don't have a lot of faith in marriage. I don't like what happened. It just was, you know, so I had to work through letting go of how we began in order to really commit to a marriage with her, because I just felt like, how are we going to really succeed? 50% of second marriages or 75% of second marriages end in divorce anyway. We started from a bad point. Like, we're probably, if we get married, probably not going to make it. So I had a lot of negativity about marriage before we got married 8 years ago, until I just realized that, you know, I'm being silly about it. I have to let go of the past. But yeah, that's what I meant.
So Martin, let me jump in. Let me jump in. So I hear what you're saying. And your main question right now is, how do I feel more consistent within myself? Like for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's your main question right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
okay.
is.
And do you have a morning routine? This is similar to what I was asking about with Jeff. Do you have a routine for yourself? Do you get out into nature every week? Do you spend 30 minutes on your own in the morning?
I do. I mean, I've always been pretty disciplined. I wake up, you know, 4:30 every morning. I go to the gym. I have my quiet time. I do some work just for my work stuff. I have enough of my own time because, you know, I'm on a business trip at least once or twice a week during a month. And that's the thing. It's more just an internal thing where it's just, I can do all those things and still just have that lack of meaning when I think about, like, wow, you know, my marriage might be ending. And that thought alone will just make me feel like I'm going to take a nap.
Yeah. So here's the rather large challenge that, as I was saying to Jeff, all of us face as men, that you're now being forced to face, which is, who are we regardless of the marriage? Who are we as a man? And you're so, again, you're in the right place, Martin. Okay. And I'm going to say this with love, that you're so new to this that you just keep leaning in, man. Keep posting, keep getting up every day. I mean, a week and a half is fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying this with love. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's guys that I mean, 6 to 12 months is like, without even blinking, I want you to do 6 to 12 months, meaning, okay, let me say it in a different way. The lover, your lover, being a king and a lover, must have your own identity. And from what I'm hearing and what you said out loud is, you feel like you've never had that.
Yeah.
So that is your mission. That is your mission. And at the same time, having compassion for Tiffany, meaning you're not trying to get anything from her. You have compassion for her place. The logistics of your living situation. I mean, again, you and I could talk more, and I'm not giving you specific strategy here on purpose. That's not what I'm here to do. I do that with men, but I need to get more into a unique, you know, your story, and we need to talk one-on-one. But the next year looks like you finding yourself. That's you. Mm-hmm. And having compassion for her basically feeling lost in a different way in her feminine journey. Okay. Your journey is more of a hero's journey, an external. Who am I in the world? What's my purpose? Doesn't have to be a giant word. Your purpose right now is to find your own self. And that's a whole thing. That's a whole, right?
Yeah.
A feminine journey is more of internal, of, you know, I lost my youth and I became mother, wife, and lost my identity. We're both human, but it's a bit different. Okay. And having compassion for the relationship spot, having compassion for both of you. And I would say, finding yourself, if I could just broad stroke, like working on yourself for the next year and really not expecting anything from her and not talking too much, like the no hummingbird questions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, right now, you know what she thinks about the relationship. That's what she thinks about it. That's what she feels. You don't need to ask her anymore. So basically, and this is super broad strokes, but basically not expecting anything from her and working on yourself for the next 1 year, and then give that future version of you these skills and grounding and perspective that you're going to learn. And that future version of you 1 year from now will then be prepared to potentially make a different decision or to potentially reattract her. Like, that's broad strokes the path that you're on. I mean, I walk men through this week to week. That's broad stroke. So how does that hit you? And we'll take a step forward here.
No, that's good. I think I need to hear it. Sometimes I forget it's been only a week and a half. It feels like it's been a while. I mean, for me, I feel like it's been longer because I've been noticing a shift in our relationship for months before she finally admitted it. But, but for practical stuff, like the phone calls every morning that she's initiating and like staying in the same bedroom, that's okay for now.
That's a good question. So like, I'd love to talk with you more. The short answer is yes. Okay. I'm hesitating because you and I need to talk more about exactly how to structure this and what that means to you and her to live in the same bed. And if you're like tortured sleeping next to her or like, right. So again, I'm not here to sell you something, right? I'm happy to talk with you. No strings attached. I was going to put this into the chat anyway. I plan to do this. So here we go. All right. I'll put this in the chat. So to reach out to Steve Horstman and the Good Guys to Great Men coaches through Steve's website is the first link there, the goodguys2greatmen.com. Right. And my website is the Great Men Move Mountains. And there's my contact form and my email address, jeff@greatmenmovemountains.com. And I have my own private Facebook group as well. We just hit 300 men. Obviously, it's free and it's private. The Great Men Move Mountains private Facebook group. So Great Men Move Mountains. So I put that into the chat too. So certainly reach out to me, and I'd like to talk with you, Martin, because there's more specifics about what I said about be careful to not be your girlfriend takes a whole discussion. That's more than today.
Okay.
You're in the right place, dude. Like this is me saying, it's like tough love. And this is day one of buds or whatever. Like this is not, week and a half. Cool. Now I totally understand the pain that you've been in, and it feels like a fucking rock slide has been happening the past some number of months. And it's like a boulder smashing you in the chest when she says these things and when she laughs at the bartenders, and like, I'm totally with you. You're in the right spot.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I know John tried to come in earlier and George has a question. So John, we'll go John and then George, please.
I was just going to try to answer a couple of questions from somebody, like, I forget who it was, asked, how do you get to this place of an in-house separation?
So John, hold on for me. So I'm here to talk about you. And so I'm not sure what you mean by answer other people's questions. So can you relate to their questions? How do you mean?
Yeah, I was going to explain how it happened to me.
Yeah, please.
There really wasn't much of a discussion. It was more of, I was told we are now separated in the house and she moved to another room. That's how it started with us.
Okay.
Keep going. Then after a couple months of that, she started disconnecting further and further, and it slowly went to done and gone. I was just thinking if I had to do it all over again, I honestly probably would have separated rather than trying to do the in-house where you still see her every day. As much as you try to focus on yourself, I had a really hard time not focusing on her because she's still there. We still had dinner together every night with like both of us and the kids, and it was a really weird situation where we're kind of like a family, but we're not a family. And I just want to caution people that it's at least in my experience, it was really, really hard. And I wish we had just actually separated instead of play separating, I guess. It didn't work out in my case, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. And I don't want to anyone to make a decision based off of either my opinion or, John's opinion or anyone's particular opinion. This is for your own information as a man, everyone that's watching this, for you to decide for your own self. But yeah, John, I agree with you in that it's incredibly difficult to be emotionally grounded when you see her all the time and doing all of the play things of marriage and being a husband, but not having any lover or intimacy connection is incredibly difficult. And that in and of itself isn't going to give her a chance to really see. One thing I hear, John, and you talk with me about this if you would. I hear all the time, well, if we aren't together, if we aren't living in the same house, how is she going to see my changes? How is she going to see my improvements?
No, I'm sorry. I'm at work. Somebody walked up. I'll be right back.
It's all right. Sure. So I'll continue with that and we'll see if John can come back and I'll call on George. I hear this a lot is, how is she going to see my changes if we're not living in the same place? And I mean, one aspect is I'll ask you, if you've seen someone every single day for a year versus you haven't seen someone for a long time and you see them again, in which instance are you more likely to notice a shift or a change in that person? Right. And to exaggerate, I don't know if you've gone to a high school reunion, but wow, you can really see shifts in people because you haven't seen them for a long time. So that's one thing to consider. And the other is, are you able to work on yourself as a man being in the same house? So John, yeah, talk with me about that. She's not going to be able to see changes if we're not together.
I think it's actually probably easier for her to see changes if you have limited interactions versus every day. Because it's like other people's kids. When you don't see them very often, they grow so much. But if you see them every day, you don't really notice. I've noticed our relationship improve more in the last 2 weeks since she moved out than the 6 months of in-home beforehand, honestly. And it's very limited interactions, trading the kids back and forth or helping her out with something she needs here and then. But there's less opportunity for her to get worked up or me to get worked up, and everything seems to work a lot smoother at this point.
Yeah, I hear you. Thanks for jumping in. Anything else you want to put on the table or a question that you have?
No, I'm pretty good now. Like, I'm pretty sure I know where we're headed and we're going to be done. And I gotta say, honestly, it's a lot better now that we're not in the same house. Being in the same house just made it very, very hard for me. I know other people have had other experiences, but that was the hardest part for me, I think.
So what got in the way for you when she was in the house? We've talked a lot about self-exploration and our own existential questions on this call today. So what was the most difficult for you?
Not acting like her husband. Like, I don't even know how to explain this. I still, because of my job, I'm home 2 days out of 3. So I did everything with the kids, a lot of the meals, the grocery shopping, everything. Like, she never had to deal with any of that. And I just kept on doing everything. And really that just afforded her the opportunity to start disappearing and hanging out with new people every night. She ended up meeting new friends and hanging out with a whole different crowd of people. Next thing you know, she's dating other people and hiding it. And I had a very hard time detaching. Like, knowing I'm going to be okay is one thing, but trying to get to that point was a whole nother.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. That emotional hangover that keeps happening.
Oh yeah, it wasn't every 3 days, it was every day.
Yeah, it takes, in my experience, it takes 3 days of being apart for us to get over it, like to flush that out of our system and be more grounded. So if you see her more often than every 3 days, so you see her, yeah,
every morning,
yeah. So we're in this perpetually difficult situation. Yeah. Thanks, John. I appreciate you coming in. Yeah, so George, coming in. And then I've got a little video I want to show. George, please. Thanks for being patient, man. I think you raised your hand like half an hour ago.
Yeah, no big deal. And then I took it down. I wasn't trying to be intrusive. You hear me okay?
Yes, go for it. Good to see you.
Okay. I'm outside. I'm sorry you're not seeing me, but lucky you.
Good to
got my
hear you.
voice
Yes.
anyway. Thank
Oh,
you.
I don't want to see you in your bathing suit or what?
Workout clothes. Anyway,
Okay.
listen, I just never want to be accused of being redundant or self-serving. And I'm just going to say a lot of the stuff that you and Steve and others have talked about has happened, has come full circle, has played out. Continue to do the work, everybody, and understand that you are just not in control of anything but yourself. And I'd like to take you through the last 2 weeks in about a minute and
Yeah,
just
please go
give
for
you a
it, George.
sense of how screwy it is. And I mean screwy. We're married 27 years. We're together 30 almost. I love her, and I didn't always show it. I made the comment to her some time ago that I never learned how from role models, and there's probably some things she didn't learn either, and we just kind of brought 3 kids into the world, and by the grace of God, they've all turned out fantastic, and hopefully as unscathed as these type of situations happen. But she's been going back and forth to another state to care for aging parents who are in pretty bad health shape. And she texted me and said, "Hey, I don't know what time I'll be home tomorrow night, but would you like to go out to get dinner?" And I was like insanely euphoric, and reached out to a couple of men and friends, and they said, take it slow, just go have dinner. Well, we had dinner, we had a good time, but on the way to dinner, she informed me that her sister is divorcing her spouse of 18 years, and she wanted to tell me before her sister tells her nieces and nephews. And I started just thinking, wow, this is really weird. I mean, I've got a separated wife who's going to be soon to be ex, it appears, her choice, not mine. And her sister's also doing it at the same time. My son tells me that the sister is, discovered during the pandemic that she didn't have as much in common with her spouse after 18 years. And I know that's very common. But anyway, just to land the plane, because I think I went over my minute, is, when she left to go to the other state about 2 weeks ago, I said to her, "Hey, Lisa, this whole in-house separation thing is not working for me. It's agony to be in the same bed and not have a husband and wife relationship." And she says, "No, I think you're right. When I come back, I'm going to move out and I'm going to stay with a friend." Well, that wasn't the result that I wanted, but I didn't listen to you guys and I pushed. Well, she comes home, and instead of moving in with a friend, she just took one of the kids' rooms that's vacant, and she's moved out. And I would just call BS on in-house separations. I call them a half-assed separation. You either separate and work on yourselves, or you don't. And I don't mean to be so black and white with so much gray in our lives. But she came back, and and went into her own room, and I just said to her, "Is this the way it's going to be?" She says, "Yeah, and we just need to go ahead and get divorced. I can't get my love back for you. I don't love you." Like, the stuff everybody else has said. And but what's interesting is that this time I just looked at her and I said, "Okay, well, what do you want to do?" Because I didn't even know where we're going to live, what we're going to do. And she says, "Well, you're going to keep the house, and you're going to." It'll be the kid's house always. I said, "Okay, Lisa." And she's just in such a scurry right now, trying to figure out her own 54-year-old self. And she's such a good person. And I told her, I said, the hardest part about this thing is I really don't want to ask some other guy to dance with his wife at my kids' weddings, because I expect to dance at their weddings and walk my daughter down the aisle. And I don't really want to walk up to your next husband and ask him if it's okay if I dance with you. So that's kind of where I'm at on this whole thing. And it feels like it's now at a point of no return, but it's all her decision. someone did ask me recently the question, if she said, "Hey, I want to come back into the marriage, what would you do?" And I would tell her, I don't think we're ready for it. We ought to stay in the separate rooms for a while, and we got to continue our counseling and our own journeys. But I'm glad you're saying that, because I'm very receptive to it. But I want to do it right, whatever right is. So I feel like I'm in a good place, yet a terrible place at the same time.
Yeah, George, thanks for being here. So what do you feel that you want to work on? For instance, if she said, hey, let's try again, let's come back together, what, for you personally, for your own self, what would you want to be working on?
I think to be ultimately not codependent. I think that when I met this beautiful girl 30 years ago and we became a couple, I kind of didn't call my parents as much to talk about things. And I kind of did a lot of, you know, intimate dumping on her about things that probably a man should not lose his masculinity on and have conversations about. You know, I bore my soul with someone I thought was going to be my life partner, and I always thought she was doing it with me. But I think she's a lot more reserved, and I never picked up on that. Call me stupid, and I'll accept it. But you know, working on being not at all dependent on her. I mean, and you know, last night was a great example. I had a friend in town for business. We went to dinner. I don't think I came in until midnight. She'd gone to bed. And it's really interesting because I told her I was going to the gym right now, and she sends me a text, and she knows my favorite football team on the planet is playing tonight at Tampa Bay. And she says, "Is this tonight?" And I texted her back. I said, "Yeah, you want to go?" And I gave her a big LOL. I said, I know that's not the case, but I'm probably going to put it on by the pool. And she wrote back, she goes, "No, don't want to go, but I wanted to, but we can turn it on TV." So it's like she's trying to be a friend, and I've been taking it as a mixed message, because this may be this is probably going to be a divorce, but she wants to remain friendly. I think for the kids, and because I think there is some feelings. I think we both have big hearts, and I think we're both good people, but we're struggling. You know, she tries to make comments like we don't have the same love language, and I said, well, nobody's got the same love language. But she's trying to find every excuse in the book right now to have no strings that bind. And I don't want to bind. That's the point. Whether, you know, I'd really like to live the rest of my life with a healthy version of her and a healthy version of me. But if it doesn't happen, I just don't want to bind anybody anymore. I don't want to be needy, greedy, or anything. I'm working on just enjoying solitude and my own faith and things like that. But it's a process, like you say. I mean, and I think the clock's run out with her. I mean, I think by the time that 6 months to a year that you talk about, because in her mind we've been struggling for 3 years, and that she kept things secret from early in the marriage about how she felt about certain things, and we never took corrective measures. I just sit here, Jeff, and I say to myself, we're going to be divorced. And I've heard of people getting back together. You know, there's no other guys, there's no other girls. I mean, do I look? Absolutely. But I always tell people I wish there were two of me, because one of me's married and I still got a ring on. I'm wearing a ring. She's not, as the other guy was talking about earlier. She's, you know, she claims her ring has got, her fingers gotten swollen and she can't put it on and everything else. And she says, but I'm also not certain I want to put it on. So just a whole lot of mixed messages and shit that I have to take seriously, but I also kind of have to take with a grain of salt for my own sanity, because I can't control any of it. And I probably have been accused over the years of trying to control outcomes for the kids and for her. It was always with the best intent, but it was probably executed. It was executed poorly.
Well, George, you're always going to have a place in your heart for her, no matter what. And I mean, I hear you want to be a man that connects with the world and does good things and sends good things into the world and raises great kids and has love in your relationship. We all see that. I think that's most men here, every man here. And no matter what happens with your wife, you'll always have a place in your heart for her. You loved her, mother of your children. So that's never a question. There are paradoxical energies in this work. There are sometimes two things we hold at the same time that we originally thought we couldn't hold them at the same time. We thought they had to be exclusive from one another. And having a love of her, having a place in your heart for her, and building your own self and envisioning not being alone and growing, being okay with that, those things can happen at the same time. And what I'm about to say is not Pollyanna to have hope. What I'm about to say is often I see when a man finally lets go, when he finally gives up on trying to reconcile and back into the same relationship, back into marriage, when he finally gives up and starts focusing on his own worth and having a smile and love and maybe pain underneath, and gifting her freedom and gifting yourself freedom to move into the next chapter of life. Once you get there, sometimes she sees a different side of you. Sometimes she becomes interested again, and you can't bank on that. You can never purposefully manipulate that. But yeah, George, you not wanting to be codependent, that's all, as you know, it's all about you. It's all about how you look at life and relationship. Yeah.
Right. I appreciate that, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're in the right place. And I love your posts on the forum, and I love you being on these calls, George. So yeah, keep building your own life, having high regard for her. And again, that's why I created this topic today. And again, not everyone's going to love this topic, but I have not seen in-house separation do very well. And often we're there for emotional support, but there's no relationship intimacy being built. And we make this mistake. And George, this isn't about you, but I'll press pause on you, George. I'm just moving forward here.
Well, Jeff, if you don't mind, before you do, I'd throw one thought out to everybody that may be helpful. When you're in a loving marriage and you or your spouse say to one another, "Hey, I'm making veal cutlet tonight. What time will you be home for dinner?" That's a lot different than somebody saying, "Will you be home for dinner?" and feeling obligated that they must prepare a meal for you as well as them during an in-house separation. I just, there's a lot of nuances with this whole in-house separation thing that feels more obligation and a byproduct of maybe trying to save money on rent for a second place than anybody truly, if you're not working on your marriage, you're not working on your marriage. And that's all I wanted to say on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, George. I'm going to share an article that I pulled up from Psychology Today that segues into very well. So this gentleman's a licensed clinical social worker. It says below that he's been in the field for 45 years. So he must be 63 to 70 years old, having worked in this field his whole life. So how couples try to make in-house separations work. Basically, it's defining why you're having an in-house separation. Now, that's what this article talks about, defining the relationship. Are we roommates who shared the same house? Okay. Do we have planned time together? Can we go off and see other people? Can we date other people? Is that part of the in-house separation? What's going to happen with the kids? Defining responsibilities, defining the space, defining next steps, decide what to say to the children. Okay. All this define is what this professional clinical social worker is saying to do. And yet, when you define things with a woman, you're trying to get her to come to the table logically, it's putting her more into a masculine energy. So it's not leading as a lover. It's basically just talking as roommates. It's almost talking man to man. Now, as I said earlier on in this call, if version 1.0 of your marriage is dead, then maybe you are at the place where you're just defining logistics in the house. And here's what's difficult for the man, as we've been saying, is we still have hope for the relationship. We get this emotional hangover. We feel needy about the situation. And so we're just in conflict, and we are there for her emotionally, maybe when she wants to come, dump her emotions, but there's no work happening on the relationship. And that's a no-win situation for a guy that wants the marriage in that spot. Okay, so we need to figure out how to go take our stuff to the men, do this work for our own selves, and understand what we can control. In other words, how often are we seeing her? How often are we speaking with her? Is that even helpful in your situation right now? Okay, and this is why guys call me. This is why guys call Steve and other coaches. So please reach out to me if you have questions about this. But basically, this article is all these masculine things. Okay, and I found this funny. The challenge. There's a real challenge in all of this negotiating and fine-tuning that in spite of all the emotional struggles a couple is having, they suddenly must somehow become fully rational adults, assertive, relatively non-emotional, and clear about priorities and goals. In other words, everything they were likely having a difficult time doing before making this in-house separation decision. So this is like this doesn't seem helpful to me. I mean, honor to this guy who posted this, but what do I do? It's basically what you're both supposed to be: assertive, relatively non-emotional, and clear. How often is that the case? Like, I don't think I've ever seen that actually be the case. So we're here to talk about what to do and how to grow yourself as a man. Yeah, Dave, thanks for raising your hand. I saw you raise it a few minutes ago. Please come on in.
Yeah, so first off, all the guys that have shared, thank you. I've learned a lot. Thanks for putting this together. So I've been doing the work. I found good guys to great men about 3 years ago. Thought things, I had to hear the I need space. At that time, we were just boyfriend, girlfriend, dating / living together off and on. Eventually, we moved in together. I bought a house. Her mom moved in for 6 months before my wife kicked her out. And we've had some ups and downs, the pressure, the hummingbird, stuff that Steve Horston describes. I constantly put pressure on. I was always, in that feminine sense, very concerned with the relationship, the romance, all that stuff. And about 3 months ago, it was, things were going okay, pretty good. They were getting better. I was doing the work, and I have been doing the work. And we got drinking one night, and we got in a big argument, and I got a little bit violent. I went to kiss her on the neck, and I actually ended up nipping her, and she got really upset. This was during the heat of an argument too. So that's it. We got back together the next day. She left with a friend. She said we're staying in separate bedrooms. We've been in separate bedrooms since. We have made trips out to visit her mom in Oklahoma in a nursing home, stayed in the same bed, and things were good, romantic, not sexual, but romantic. Came back, and I had that emotional hangover you mentioned. I want things back together. I want to be back in the bedroom, and at the beginning, I was really focusing. I found myself focusing and wanting to just work on me this time around, because during the last 1.5 to 2 years, I always kept doing it with the want to make the relationship work, draw her closer to me. I had that agenda in the background. This time around, I was really focusing on me, finding my mission in life, finding my purpose. Another quick tidbit: I was married before for 19 years, lost her to cancer. Was with her day in, day out for the last 2 years. So very hummingbird-like caretaking. So now we roll forward. Let me bring it back up. So March 21st, all the bad stuff happened. We decided to separate into separate. Well, I was told we were going to separate into separate bedrooms. The in-house separation, not my choice. It's one of those things I don't have control over. We just recently, last week, went camping together. It was the first vacation we've had in quite a while. Things were very romantic, good. She was decompressing from a bad job she just quit. Even had sex for the first time in 8 months. Got back yesterday, and then last night I had that emotional hangover, and I was just all day long just like, damn, I want to be back in the bedroom together, back in the master bedroom. And I went to bed in my room. I was really trying to keep everything contained and not say anything to her, but I wasn't able to. I actually got up. It was about 10 o'clock at night. I walked into the bedroom and said, I want us to start staying in the bedroom together again. I want things back where, we're husband and wife. And she felt the pressure. It was bad. She was upset this morning. I am hearing what I'm hearing now. Let's go into the question. Okay. She has told me time and time again that her whole soul goal is for both of us to be happy and healthy together in a healthy relationship. I know I haven't been healthy on my side. I've been very hovering, very smothering. I've seen it. I've recognized it. I acknowledge it. I work on it, but I then just snap right back in after I get into that you describe as emotional hangover. Hearing what I've heard from George and from I lost track, I think it was Michael, in-house separation, that article we read doesn't seem to work. But what if both couples want the relationship to work, but they both know that they both need to work on each other? Is that possible? I mean, what is your thought on that, Jeff?
Yeah, that's a thank you for bringing that up, Dave. That's a great question. So what we've talked about most of this call is when she doesn't want the relationship, right? When she's saying, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, and she wants separation. So what you're asking is if you basically both are saying that you want the relationship, but there's some kind of dysfunction happening, or there, yeah, okay.
The dysfunction, she's very stressed out. Her mom's in hospice, has been for almost 2 years now. Very difficult coworker. Plus me we both were teleworking for 2 years together. I was constantly on top of her. I developed some really bad habits from the previous marriage those last 2 years where I was caretaking and with her 100% of the time. I brought that forward into this marriage. I have and had no life at the time. I'm still working on that and developing, trying to develop my own hobbies away from Carol, so we have that part of me, but then she also is, she describes herself as codependent and overcoming that. She's worked her way through a lot. She's very independent, tomboyish, but also introverted, where I'm an extrovert. I tend to drain energy. She wants time alone to herself and decompress, and I want to be with her all the time. Well, that makes it so that's probably that dysfunction that
Yeah, so let me jump in,
also
Dave.
needs her space.
Yeah, let me jump in. So I hear what you're saying, and there's 50, 60 years of clinical research on what's called family systems theory of why we get together with people. There's, you might say, spiritual reasons that you're with this person. You might say, within my work, masculine and feminine challenge, how she's challenging you and pushing you to an edge of finding your own self, your own independence. Her femininity doesn't want to be your mother. A woman who wants to be sexually attracted to his man doesn't want to be his mother, doesn't want to be his sister. And so some of that smothering and taking too many things to her makes her feel like, and this isn't perfect example, but makes her feel like more motherly inside, and that doesn't turn her on. Okay.
I've seen that.
Now, what do you do about emotional hangover, as we've been talking about this whole call, is you feel when that comes on, and you go away alone and take care of it your own self. You come to the brothers, you post, you go work out, maybe you plan a weekend in the mountains. Now we're talking about when you're separated in the same house with a woman. Okay. So basically, looks like I froze here. Looks like it froze for a second. I come back. So basically, I would be planning on literally not spending as much time with your woman. Okay, there's a framework for this, which I teach within my Kingly Life Path membership, my VIP membership. And it's attention, affection, and commitment. Attention is just literally how much time you're spending with her, how much literal attention. Okay, an hour a day, 5 minutes a day, you only see her twice a week, literally how much attention. Affection is the level of high regard and kingly vision, as I teach it. What do you have in your mind? What do you have in your body, in your heart, in your soul, in your balls? How do you see yourself when you see her? And you always want to have a high amount of affection for her. So I call it surgical strikes, right? You're happy within yourself. You're joyous to see her. You have high regard in your mind. You, as Steve Horseman and I both teach, right? You see the little girl, the hurt little girl that's within her. You also see the identities that she's wanting to be. If she's wanting to feel independent or successful as a career woman, or she wants to feel in love in a relationship, you honor all these things. These are things that I teach. Yeah. So you still have high regard for her. You're not thinking like, yeah, fuck you, bitch, when you see her in the kitchen. It's not, oh, she's broken. There's my broken woman. There's my woman who needs to fix herself before we could move forward. That's not high regard either. And so less amount of time together, but when you see her, it's still high regard. It's still deep openness. It's still love between the two of you. And if you know you're going to have an emotional hangover after that, then you got to plan time to go be on your own. Like if you're an extrovert, Dave, you need to go have a trivia club or a bowling league or play racquetball with your bros or have a hiking club off meetup.com, or like making yourself busy, which is going to keep you in shape, make you more excited for life, have more stories that you'll bring back into the house and be able to share with her fun, exciting, inspiring things you're doing in life. Like that's where you're at. So how does that come across, Dave, what I just said?
It all makes sense. It does make sense. And prior to the camping trip, that's exactly what I was doing. I was going out, I was doing my own things, trying to catch up with the guys, do whatever, metering my time. And also realizing I had things around the house that I needed to get done. So I spent time taking care of things around the house, which is to me part of my kingdom. But that emotional hangover hit hard, and when we went out to in June to Oklahoma, before she went, she was concerned that was going to happen, that I would want to get back into the bedroom and, cut this short. And it happened again.
So Dave, what does it feel like in your body? I hear you. So what does it feel like in your body when you have that emotional hangover? What does it feel like?
Well, part of it is I start feeling this is bad, but it's resentment that she's putting me through this. That, this time around, it was actually, damn it, I lost a wife to cancer. I've been through so much in the last 10 years. How dare you, and it's time for me to just go ahead and call the shots and say, here's what's going to happen, and that wasn't right. That wasn't the right way to be. And that's part of what drove me to do what I did last night. I got sad, very sad, tightness in the chest, not so much chest, but shoulders, headache,
Yeah, that makes sense. And it sounds like, so you're aware of it. You're very aware. That's great. And that's what we need to have to catch it ahead of time when we're feeling that way. Like, get out of there, go for a walk,
Like, yeah. And last night at 10 o'clock at night, I was getting up out of my bed, and I'm like, man, I'm doing the wrong thing. I shouldn't be going in there, but I just went ahead and did it. I just didn't maintain or practice self-control.
Yeah. So this is some homework that I want to give you. I don't know how this is going to come across to every man who's on here, so I'll just lean into it. Let's see if it looks like I froze for a second again. There we go. Looks like I'm back. You could see this as a spiritual challenge, or a challenge to your grounding as a man, in that, and I've been there, Dave. Man, I've been angry and then just said, I'm fine, and tried to plow through, and doesn't ever work. And so I've had to learn to check myself. I've had to take myself down a notch. Or it's the spiritual challenge of, who do I think that I am to go try to put this energy onto someone else, to try to force or manipulate or cajole. And often it has to do with fear underneath. Fear usually comes from feeling like a victim, right? These things have happened to me, so I feel like I can't control myself. I'm afraid that things are going to happen to me again, which means we don't have existential perspective on ourselves. So bad things are going to happen in our lives. This is something I had to experience. I mean, I've shared the story and I won't do it again here, but when I was in court with my 14-year-old, I never thought I'd be in that position. When I faced similar spots as you guys in the past. Okay, it's been many years now. It's been 7, 8 years. I found Steve Horstman 7, 8 years ago at this point. And I've worked in psychology and teaching and emotions since I was 30 years old, for a long time. Okay, so long before that. I never thought I'd be in that spot. And it's this challenge to our own, who do I think that I am? What am I trying to do in the world? What does it mean? What does a relationship mean to me? And these are deep things. So I'm getting off. I'd love to talk about that more if anyone wants to speak about that, or I could talk about that in another call. We've got about 2 minutes left today, and I want to end a little more lighthearted. And guys seem to like, I did a video a couple of years ago on YouTube, and I haven't done many of them, where I played a scene from a movie, and then I gave ideas, or I critiqued basically the energy between the couple, what was happening there, and how you as a man could look at it in a different way. And so I thought it very pertinent that I find the preview of, I think it's, 1989, The War of the Roses, right? They're separated in the same house. So I want you, the men that have been doing this work, which is pretty much all of you, I want you to look at what kind of energetic or frame mistakes is, I forget the man's name, the man making in this preview. I'll only show like a minute and a half of it, minute and a half. What frame or approach or energetic mistakes is he making in this clip? Here we go.
This is the most romantic day of my whole life.
This is the story we're going to tell our grandchildren.
Barbara and Oliver Rose.
Wait a minute, wait, what's your name?
Barbara!
They met great.
I love the rain.
God, I love it too.
They agreed on that.
Are you happy?
I'm more than happy. I'm married.
This house is so beautiful. And we live here.
House, car, boy, girl, puppy, kitty. The poor bastards never had a chance.
Your crystal is lovely.
Back around.
I didn't know anything about this before I met Oliver. My mother bought her glasses at the A&P, you know, the kind with the raised...
It always starts with the little things.
And that phony laugh.
Okay, all right, maybe overdid it. Let me have it.
If love is blind,
Now I got you.
marriage is like having a stroke.
When I watch you eat, when I look at you lately, I just want to smash your face in.
Smash my face.
Okay, we'll stop it right there. I don't know if did you see the frame mistakes at the beginning? He was just agreeing with everything that she said. And she asked him if he's happy, and he said he's more than happy. He's married, right? Like it's the be all end all of our lives. And that's something that we've all been punched in the face, like he was at the end of that clip. And I want you to know you're in good company. Okay, I've been there. Every man who's here has found this work because of immense challenge in his life, like the erosion of your value set. And how you never thought it could come to this spot is the beginning of this new chapter of your life, to learn about yourself, to be more grounded, to be more confident, to know how to take your shit to the men and how to be more of a lover and leader for your woman, because that's what she wants. And that's what's going to make you feel more grounded on top of it. So love that you guys are here. Jim, C, Dave, you're fantastic. George, thanks for coming in. Jeff, thanks for coming in earlier too. Michael, good to see you, buddy. Hey, Martin, I appreciate you being here, man. It's just the beginning. Stay with us. Chris, Carl, Ron, Henrik, Harry, RG, you guys are fantastic. We'll see you in the next one. Ciao, guys.